There you go. It's time for Daniel in the Deacon's Den with Deacon Dan Brahier. Good morning to you, Deacon Dan. Looking forward to our conversation as you celebrate a pretty big anniversary, 10 years since you taught abroad in England.
In England.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all about that experience.
You know, it's amazing how fast 10 years can go,
Yeah.
especially at our ages. It gets to that point. But, yeah, it was 10 years ago this spring, and I realized as I was thinking about today is, the Feast of St. Augustine of Canterbury, which surprises a lot of people. They think it is the St. Augustine, and it's actually, there's two different Augustines out there.
Yeah.
But Augustine of Canterbury was the first Archbishop of Canterbury and really helped to spark and get the Catholic faith going in England around the year 600. And so one of the places that we visited on the trip actually was the cathedral at Canterbury, and St. Thomas Becket happens to be one of my all-time favorite saints. Yeah. And to be able to visit the chapel where he was praying evening prayer the night that he was killed was just so moving. Just literally brought me to tears. But it was 10 years ago. So what happened was I, of course, taught at BGSU at the university for 30-some years. And in 2016, they asked me to go to England for the semester. We have an exchange program where 15 students in education from BGSU go to Keele University, which is near Manchester, and they spend a semester there, and a faculty member goes with them. And so that faculty member interacts and works with the students. And so like part of the time I would teach my own American students from Bowling Green, but then I also taught British students in a team-taught class and a class by itself. So you kind of have an opportunity to interact with both sides of the fence. And so I went in early January. I was there through the middle of June, and had the most amazing experience of my life over there. And I think my wife was able to take a 3-month leave of absence from her teaching and to come over and join me. So she was with me most of the time. And what I think was most fascinating, and maybe the point of all of this, is that we sometimes just don't realize at the time how God is going to use something in our lives to change us in a lot of ways. So I viewed that as I'm taking a trip, going to England to teach for the semester. God didn't see it that way. It was, I'm going to put you over in England and allow you to have a whole bunch of experiences that will feed you and form you so thoroughly that when you come back, you'll know absolutely that you're being called to be a deacon, because I still wasn't sure about that.
Isn't that something?
We were in the 4th year of a total of 5 years of deacon formation, and I was still discerning at the time whether God was calling me. I was one of those guys that, that didn't know right away that I was being called. It took me several years, and I was, discerning all of that. So the way that it went down is that during the semester, I taught every Friday until 1 p.m., and then I didn't teach again until Tuesday. So we always had like from Friday afternoon until Tuesday morning. So my wife was like the travel agent. So she'd plan something, and every Friday afternoon we either jump on a train or a plane and we go to another place, another country, whatever, for 3 or 4 days. And, so during that time we went to Portugal, we visited Fatima, we went to France to visit Lourdes, we went to Ireland and went to Our Lady of Knock, all of the places where the Blessed Mother appeared to people. We were in Rome. One of the most fascinating experiences in Italy. We had been there multiple times before, but this was just a kind of a cool experience where the Easter Triduum, on Holy Thursday, we went to Mass in Rome, and then we spent the night there. We got up and took a train to Assisi, and we spent Good Friday in Assisi and went to the services and spent the night there. And then we got up the next morning and took the train to Padua, and we went to the St. Anthony's Basilica for the Easter Vigil, spent the night there, and then took the train to Venice and spent Easter there. So it was just like this, just the most amazing Triduum ever. We went to Greece. We visited Patmos, and went to the cave where John the Evangelist was exiled and where he wrote the book of Revelation. We spent time in Turkey. We visited the ancient city of Ephesus. And I have a picture I just actually uncovered the other day, standing in the place where St. Paul is preaching in the amphitheater in Ephesus. And then some other things kind of more deliberate, like when we were back in England, I made an appointment to meet with the delegate for permanent deacons for the Diocese of Liverpool. And we had tea together and spent the afternoon just talking, and there was a very well-known pastor in the area there who was very outgoing and very, evangelizing type of person. And he and I got together and for some spiritual direction. I met with him. And just like all of these things, that started to happen. Ann and I did a retreat together at St. Bernard Abbey, which is a Trappist abbey in England. And then when she went back to the States, I later went on and did another retreat, which was like a chance of a lifetime on a remote island called Caldy Island. It's off the coast of Wales. It's kind of the most austere Trappist monastery in the world because you have to take a small boat out there, and there's only a couple months during the year you can even get there. And I spent several days there with the monks in Wales out on that island. So it was really during that trip that I heard God say that he was calling me to be a deacon. Wow. And so I kind of switched the gears from discerning to preparing, for a life that would follow. And so I think it was a matter of clearing enough clutter from my life to actually listen to him. And so I think the message there is that God will use the circumstances of our lives to teach us things. I had no idea going into that trip how it would change our lives. And now Ann and I have this lifetime of memories, and we grew so much in our experiences and our faith. And I'm still preaching and I'm still teaching the things that I learned, 10 years ago. And so I think the thing that I continue to go back to is that we look for God in the events of our lives. Whatever it is he's calling us to do, it might be a business trip, it might be a phone call, it might be a family get-together, whatever. But somehow God is speaking to us all the time. Sometimes it's the most routine trip, it's the most routine assignment, but there's some opportunity to find him in a unique way, and you just never know what God has in store for you.
Wow. You know what I love about that too, Deacon Dan, is as you're going through that discernment process, most of us would think, well, I need to get away and make a retreat. I need to go to this place or that. It was your work, the place that you were working at, a secular university, that God used to take you to a place where he would answer that with great clarity.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was all part of a plan, because I don't think, of course you could never, backtrack, but I don't think I ever would have been able to figure that out, come to that conclusion without God actually removing me and sending me to a different place. I remember when I was there and people found out that I was in formation, they had a pretty active Catholic group there on campus. One statistic I found kind of interesting I learned in England is that, as you know, the Anglican or Church of England dominates the country, and only 10% of the country is actually made up of Catholics. But on a typical Sunday, there are more Catholics at Mass than all other Christians combined in the rest of the country. Wow. So the Catholics that are there are very committed. And so they had an active, Catholic group on campus, and they asked me if I would preach at the Ash Wednesday services. Well, keep in mind, I'm still in the middle of formation. So,
right.
So I immediately contacted our vicar for clergy and said, is this possible? And he said, if it's a non-denominational service and it's outside of Mass, of course you can. And it was. And so that was actually the first homily I ever preached.
Really?
Large group of students in England on campus for Ash Wednesday. And it was so fascinating to do that. But again, why am I in England preaching? Like, how does that happen? Well, because God just wants it that way. He just pulls that out of his pocket.
I love that, and I love the testimony about the aliveness of the Catholic Church for the few members that were there 10 years ago. Now, 10 years fast forward, more Catholics than Anglicans in England for the first time since the Reformation. So, look, big things happening, and it all goes back to you, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's that homily. It's that first homily you preached.
It must have been pretty powerful.
The floodgates just opened.
There must be some. I bet you get flashes from time to time. Thinking back during that time in England, that come back to you when you least expect it.
Yeah, they definitely do. And it's the little things. It's those experiences, like a conversation that I might have had with somebody, where all of a sudden it just kind of pops back in again. But it was laying a lot of groundwork, and I have to be careful. I try not to talk too much publicly about places that you've been, because you don't want to feel like you're bragging to people about, hey, I've been here and I've been there, because that's not what it's about. It's really bragging about God and the fact that He set this up for me to give me those memories that do pop in and allow me to be able to do the work, the ministry that I do.
Well, and you answered a big question for me, because the great Catholic movement that's happening throughout Great Britain right now is referred to as the Brahier effect. And now I know why. Now I know why. I had no idea. Had no idea.
Deacon Dan
Because
Brahier.
I scared all the Anglicans out of the country.
I understand the snakes left Ireland because you stopped by too, by the way.